Hi you guys, hello and welcome. I hope everybody's doing very well. I hope you guys are really enjoying life. It's been a hot minute since I've made a long form video, so I'm gonna try to be a little more consistent on this channel. I feel like I say that a lot, but there's a plant right in front of me that I'm gonna show you in a sec that I think a lot more people need to grow. It's really beautiful. This guy over here, this is Solanum laciniatum, also known as Solanum aviculare, or the kangaroo apple, or the parapo. So this it goes by a few different names too, like the Tasmanian apple, the Tasmanium solanum. Like it goes by different names too. But this is in the Solanaceae family, so it's in the tomato and eggplant family and the potato family. But this one grows into a really beautiful, nice shrub. In its natural habitat, North Island, New Zealand, Victoria State, Australia, it grows up to about 4 meters, sometimes a little bit higher in height and a very similar spread, and it'll actually send canes down the bottom. Solanum aviculare is actually a different species. It has a slightly smaller flower. The flowers are usually paler in color, and usually they don't have such large clusters of fruits. It's a very, very fast growing plant. This is a plant that I find does not respond very well to pruning at all. I pruned it here. It's not the kind of plant where you really see a whole lot of new lateral shoots after you cut it back, and I've noticed that pruning it actually really slows it down. It's a continuous bloomer. It blooms with these really beautiful double kind of fused potato-like flowers, like eggplant-like flowers. Sorry, this motorcycle's going by right now. One interesting thing about this plant is, I don't know if you're familiar with like snowberry and plants that produce a different form leaf when they're juvenile versus when they're mature. But when the plant is juvenile, it has a tendency to produce more of these trilobate leaves. And then it'll also produce these lanceolate leaves as it gets older and as its bloom starts, or as its growth starts to pick up. Much like a pepper, this plant grows in forks. I don't know if you can see here, and it fruits when it's quite juvenile too, and it fruits all the way through September here in Canada. In its native range, this is a hardy, kind of tough as nails, drought-tolerant perennial shrub, and it can get quite woody. I'm in zone 8A here in southern Canada. In our climate, it gets a little too cold for it in the winter. I would cut it back down to, several nodes. I would probably cut it here, I'd probably cut it here, and I'd probably cut it here, and then overwinter it, either in a burlap sack or in like a dark area inside, dormant. So solanums and nightshades in general, one thing I really have to say is they are toxic when the fruit is unripe. So this is the kangaroo apple. Beautiful eggplant-like fruit. Incredibly toxic when it's juvenile and green like this. Once it ripens up, some species will turn kind of like a peachy orange, and some species will turn red. Once the fruit starts to split and is fully colored all the way up here to the calyx, then it's safe to eat. It's almost like a really kind of sweet, overwhelmingly sweet honeydew kind of flavor. It's very melon-like. The fruits are quite nutritious as well. But once again, I cannot stress this enough. Do not eat the fruit until it's fully like overripe just to be safe. So this plant has a few different problems as far as pests go. I don't know if you can see right now, mine has aphids. It's a bit of an aphid draw plant. It's quite susceptible to thrips as well, because thrips are, attracted to the color purple, and this happens to be the perfect shade of purple for thrips, this flower. One thing I will say is this plant resents having fertile soil. It's the kind of plant that does very well in disturbed areas. It does very well in low fertility areas, in dry areas. Kangaroo apple is successfully propagated via air layering or via seeds. If you decide to grow this via seeds, please wear gloves because the seeds are also toxic. And only get seed from overripe fruit, just to make sure that, a little bit of that toxin has been released. I promise that once the fruit are, fully developed, they are edible though. So don't miss out on the fruit, just get them when, they're ready. Here in southern Canada, kangaroo apple will fruit kind of mid-August, late August is kind of when it's ready. You can trim it back, but as I said earlier, it'll really slow down. It's not the kind of plant that likes being pruned back. I recommend putting it on like an arbor or a small trellis or over top of like another shrub where it can kind of, hang on to. You'll get better fruit production that way and you'll get way more flowers. It really does attract the bees. I've seen bees all over this plant, especially when the bottom clusters started blooming. Excuse me. Kangaroo apple is a plant that likes full sun, definitely more full sun. I cannot stress this up enough. There's like so many different kinds of nightshades. If you're looking at a nightshade and you really want to make sure it's kangaroo apple, this is one of those ambiguous plants that I would really recommend, you know, having a reference photo online next to you and comparing it side by side just to be on the safe side, because this looks a little bit similar to Solanum dulcamera and other solanums when they start to fruit. And if you have small kids, for example, this is not a plant that I would grow next to small kids just because they have a bit of a proclivity for touching things, obviously. Children are curious. You want to make sure that they don't get into these fruits. The mature fruit's a little bit longer. They can be about 2 inches wide, or long rather. Yeah, if you do have problems with aphids on these guys, I would just recommend really giving it a good spray down with a hose. If you bring it indoors for the winter, I would not recommend bringing it back out until you're really, really sure that you're not going to get another hard frost. I would try to bring it out when daytime temperatures are at least 10 degrees Celsius. Here in southern Canada, I mean, depending on your zone, here in 8A, that's typically early May, late April. So this is definitely not the kind of plant that you want to expose to intense cold. But just to give you some scale, like perspective, it's a large leafed plant. I could see this having potential in landscape features. It's very reminiscent of like an oleander. It's definitely, kind of a unique plant. I really like the form too, by the way. If you're growing these in containers, they do like being pot bound. I've noticed that they definitely do appreciate not having a whole lot of root room, because I had this in the ground and it didn't do very well. I potted it up just to move it, and it shot out a whole bunch of new growth. So that's Solanum. Aviculare is also, kind of a kangaroo apple, but the species are slightly different. That one has, kind of smaller fruit. But with that said, it's a really, really cool plant. I 10 out of 10 recommend it. It's so unique. It's something that not a lot of people have. You can buy seeds online, but just be careful because, solanums with their toxins might be prohibited in your area. But I'm sure if you can find like a niche propagator or like a kind of specialty nursery, you can probably find this one, and I'd recommend it. One thing I will say, being there's a lot of traffic today. Oh my gosh. Being in the Solanum family, this plant produces a latex-like sap. So if you are pruning it, either be incredibly careful with your pruning style or make sure that you're wearing gloves because it is an irritant on your skin. I hope you guys are having a really wonderful day. Yeah, stay blessed, and I have no idea what I'm going to film next. We'll see. Have a good one.